Poverty or security? Penury or prosperity? What does the future hold for Canadians? Hi, I'm Michelle Sterling for Friends of Science Society. On September 16, 2020, the Task Force for Resilient Recovery issued its $55 billion plan, listing 5 bold moves as the pillars of a Canadian economic recovery from the COVID-19 collapse. On September 23, 2020, the speech from the throne curiously echoed these pillars. The Task Force for Resilient Recovery claims to be an independent group of Canadian finance, policy, and sustainability leaders determined to make sure Canada seizes this opportunity. But how independent can they be when one of the more influential participants bills himself this way? Retired international banker Parker Gallant took a look at the task force and found it's not as independent as it claims. It's funded by several tax-subsidized foundations, and the task force does not disclose their financial resources, nor do the foundations disclose the value of their donations. The founding partners include Smart Prosperity Institute, the International Institute for Sustainable Development, Insurance Bureau of Canada, and the Ivy Foundation. Smart Prosperity was formerly Sustainable Prosperity, and the Sustainable Prosperity Project was originated by law professor Stuart Elgee. Elgee also set up Eco-Justice, a foreign and domestic-funded charity that has blocked pipelines and overturned approved projects with repeated efforts in court. In early 2008, Sustainable Prosperity received $155,000 of additional funding from 3 Canadian foundations and was awarded $1.8 million over 7 years by the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada for the Research and Policy Network. It's based at the University of Ottawa. The above came from the McConnell Foundation, who granted them $725,000. SSHRCC falls under the responsibility of Navdeep Bains, Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry in the Trudeau-led government. IISD is a registered charity, and their website notes that IISD receives core and project funding support from numerous governments inside and outside Canada, United Nations agencies, foundations, and the private sector. In a quick look at their last financial report filed on the CRA site for the year ending March 31st, in 2019 they generated 0.65% of their total revenue from donors requesting charitable receipts. However, $4.5 million, or 17.2%, came from the federal, provincial, and/or territorial governments, and $19.8 million, or 76.8%, came from sources outside Canada. IISD are nothing without taxpayer support. So, independent? Not so much. In fact, it would appear to be a conflict of interest in many ways that unwitting taxpayers and foreign sources are funding these influential parties that clearly have exceptional access to the office of the Prime Minister of Canada. You may say that these people are experts in their fields. Perhaps they are, but they're not experts in power generation or energy economics. We've written a 2-part rebuttal to the task force report. The first part deals with the geopolitics and what the task force left out. In the task force report, Bridge to the Future, they compare Canada to several other nations and their plans for green recovery. But there are lots of important details they ignore. For instance, in touting France as a leader on investment in EVs, electric vehicles, they neglect to mention that France is a nuclear power, so power generation for EVs is a no-brainer. Plus, France has a number of EV car manufacturers and ready public market in the European Union of more than 300 million people. By contrast, Canada is a vast, cold place with long distances between communities and very low population density. So what does that matter? Well, when embarking on very expensive new infrastructure projects to be funded by the public, it's important to understand what is the relative tax base and the relative benefit to those paying in. Canada's population density is only 4 people per square kilometre. By contrast, France is the second most populous country in Europe, with lots of existing high-voltage infrastructure for their train system. Canada doesn't have any of that. So please review Part 1 and appreciate the geopolitical context of climate and energy policies. Understand that something that works in one country might not be applicable at all in another country for many different reasons. We should not try to copy other countries' policies just to jump on a bandwagon of virtue signaling. Part 2 of Penury versus Prosperity reviews the 5 bold moves proposed by the task force, which were echoed throughout the speech from the throne. We address each one in detail, but in general, it's important to understand there was no focus on supporting or advancing the international income-earning industries that replenish our tax pool, like the oil, gas, oil sands, and coal sectors. These commodities are in demand worldwide, and the demand will only grow. The 5 bold moves focus on industries with potential for global markets. Many claims are made about how, by supporting clean tech, Canada will become a leader, but all of these industries rely on subsidies for development. These are recycled ideas from the 2017 Smart Prosperity Plan that we debunked in 2 reports, Grounded in Reality and the Clean Growth Hallucination. That original Smart Prosperity Supercluster Plan is already a failure. They promised 60,000 jobs then, but the Parliamentary Budget Office notes that the Supercluster Plan is behind schedule and unlikely to even create 10,000 jobs. In 2013, Joseph Deere, then the Chief Investment Officer of CalPERS Pension Fund, said that their long-term investment in clean tech had been a noble way to lose money, and we're not here to lose money. Now the task force and the federal government claim they'll create 1 million jobs and draw investment. Based on subsidies? Taxpayers are all out of money, and promises don't refill the piggy bank. According to the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, the debt clock as of today is this. To recover from the COVID economic crisis, Canada must draw investors that will develop high-value commodities, minerals, resources, or materials for export to create value-added opportunities to replenish the tax pool. So, to be blunt, it looks like the 5 bold moves and the speech from the throne are intended to draw the kind of investors that will further drain Canada of cash. In our opinion, no due diligence was done on any of the proposals. Even the simplest professional review would have shown that a zero-emissions vehicle policy for Canada is unattainable in the short term, and that for Canada's present EV policy, we don't have enough power generation. Not even in Quebec, with its mighty James Bay Robert Bourassa Dam. Though $55 billion is a lot of money, it's nowhere near enough to adequately address the proposals, because ultimately it will be taxpayers underwriting these 5 bold moves that further empty the treasury and don't bring back the solid, long-term investors that once made Canada a stable, globally respected home for investment, a place of good jobs and peace, order, and good government. For Friends of Science Society, I'm Michelle Sterling. Please read our reports.